This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am joined once again by the wonderful, fantastic, fabulous Jill Bucaro, who's joining us all the way from just outside Georgia today. Jill, of course, being the founder of Wellness Riot, originally in Los Angeles, now just outside Atlanta, Georgia. How are you today, Jill?
I'm good, thank you. It's cooling down here, so I'm very happy.
Okay, I can understand.
Yeah.
We are just hitting a wonderful fall right now, so I love this time of year. Now,
Yeah.
before we get into winter proper, we thought we'd speak about something that is a little bit more, I guess, connected to warmer climates for most of the year, and that is fruit. So
Yes.
fruit, I'm sure, plays a large part in your life, as it does in mine. But what are the myriad benefits of a diet rich in fruit?
Yeah. So first, I should probably say we're going to talk about fruits that most of us think of as fruits.
Yeah.
Because, things like tomatoes and peppers and, eggplant and avocados are fruits, but we'll talk about mostly like what we think, of as fruit. So fruits have, nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, like tons of great things that, we need and that, help us live, healthier lives, more energy, better aging, smoother digestion, like lots of great benefits there. So with like antioxidants, for example, which is going to help decrease that cellular aging, that oxidative stress. Berries are the top. Blackberries, blueberries, strawberries are the richest in antioxidants. And then fiber, great for digestive health, great for balanced weight, blood sugar. So those highest are avocados, which I know I said I wasn't going to talk about avocados, but there I go. Berries, raspberries and blackberries specifically, mango, passion fruit, pears are some of the highest fiber content fruits, although, all of them have at least a little bit of fiber. And, just being a whole food is beneficial, as opposed to being like a processed food. So, whole foods, they contain sugar, but they also contain the other components that help you digest that in a way that's beneficial, right? Like the fiber and the micronutrients and things like that. So we process it in, a more slow and positive way, unlike sugars from like sodas or processed foods or things like that. So those are just some of the benefits, the big picture.
Would it be fair to say that fruits are some of the most nutritionally dense food sources out there?
They are, yeah. Fruits and vegetables tend to be the most nutritionally dense foods out there, and there is a difference, between or among the fruits. So there's fruits like, berries that tend to be like lower in sugar, still really high in nutrients, as opposed to like the tropical fruits like bananas and mangoes that tend to be higher in sugar. They all still provide benefits, but I'd say those lower sugar ones tend to be more packed with like the benefits, as opposed to, and still have that moderate to low sugar value.
I was about to ask you about that because a lot of fruits do have a lot of fruit sugars in them. Does one have to be careful how much of those more sugary fruits one consumes?
Yeah, I would say to be cautious on, the amount of fruit, specifically those, high sugar content ones that you take in during a day. I'm almost never one to look down on a whole food of any sort.
Right.
But I think, when it comes to, the extremes of, having like tons of sugar, it still is sugar and your body is still going to process it, as sugar. So you do want to be mindful of, the grams or the intake, within like a specific meal or a specific day. And some of that is things like, fruit juices or fruit smoothies. So it sounds like 100% fruit, juice. But one thing is you don't get the fiber in juice and you still have that high sugar content. So like a 12-ounce glass of orange juice has the same amount of sugar as Coke. It's
Okay.
about 10 teaspoons.
Yes.
The juice will have nutrients that the soda won't, so it's still more beneficial in that way, but it's pretty high in sugar and you don't have that fiber, to like slow it down. So, if you are juicing, it's nice to make a blend of like mostly vegetables with the fruit
Right.
to,
Yes.
maybe be a palate, pleaser. And then even with smoothies, when you have that fiber in there, if you think about like an all fruit smoothie, say we're just doing like a 16-ounce smoothie, right? But it's all fruit. I mean, would you eat that much in one sitting? Like a whole banana and a half a, apple and orange and grapes and berries and all that kind of stuff, mixing it with like some coconut water, whatever you're using, like that's a lot of sugar. And we tend to drink smoothies really fast. And this is like any smoothie, right? Like, I mean, we just, because
Yes.
it's easy, right? And so we're getting that in like maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Like you wouldn't eat that much fruit probably in 15 or 20 minutes. So those are something to be like aware of. And then with the smoothies, just like the juice, you want a balance of like vegetables, greens, even something like a healthy fat, a nut butter, some protein, something like that to kind of like balance it out. So you're not just like taking in, grams and grams and grams of sugar.
Now, to take this to the extreme, there is the whole thing, the fruitarian diet, which I'm sure that eating that much fruit cannot be good for you.
No, you're missing. I mean, there's gaps. There's things that you can only get in, proteins and vegetables or carbohydrates or whatever that is. So you're going to have a gap if you're only eating fruit. Just like if you're only eating anything that you want to have a variety. So that's where I think like fruit might have a bad rap in some circles because of these extreme, diets where they're not taking into consideration, the overall nutritional needs. They're just like, I don't know, like I love fruit, but I can't see eating it morning, noon, and night and not having anything else. So, I think that's where it can fall short. And then fruits do have carbs. I mean, they're carbohydrates. And so I think, in some circles, in some diet, they get, another bad rap because they have carbs, but it just like, it makes me cringe when I hear people usually use the word carbs because they don't differentiate between, pastries and donuts and, complex carbs like fruits and vegetables and beans and quinoa. So yes, they have carbs, blueberries have carbs, but they have so many benefits, and it's not that we never need carbohydrates, but there's a difference between those refined, sugar carbs and like complex carbs.
Which fruits have the most carbohydrates? I'm curious.
So starch, the ones that we would think of as like starchy, so like bananas, apples, like those kinds have like the most carbs, whereas like the berries tend to be lower.
Now, one thing I found quite fascinating is the fact that, I've heard my mother say, oh, tomatoes don't taste the same way as they used to when I was a child. And I used to think that was a load of rubbish, but it's actually true. And you have a theory about what's been going on with that.
Well, they've really, I think, to our benefit in a lot of ways, farmers over the years have like, farmed or changed or modified fruits, and vegetables, but for this case, fruits to be more of what we want and less of what we don't want. So like if you see a watermelon from like hundreds of years ago, it's like tons of seeds. It almost looks like a pomegranate because it's like tons of flesh in there and very little pink or like what we would eat, right? Like the part that we feel is the tastiest. Now it's like giant watermelons, no seeds, all sweet, same thing with like apples. Bananas used to have big seeds in them.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So your mom said tomatoes?
Yes. Well, she said tomatoes, but
tomatoes, yes.
But it's interesting because, I mean, you think about the domesticization of all of these, what were once wild fruits, and many of them bear the same relation that a lap dog does to a wolf if you look at them now, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know, I think for centuries, I mean, if you go back to, I think it was 11,000 years ago, the fig was first domesticated, followed by the olive about 8,000 to 6,000 years ago. And but throughout that time, even although we only had a proper understanding of plant genetics in about the late 1800s with Gregor Mendel, I think there was that kind of selective, it is in a way genetic modification, but it's selective breeding of
Yeah.
certain
Mhm.
qualities. Because I was reading earlier today that eggplants or aubergines used to be spiny on the outside, and that's been bred out of them. But another interesting thing about eggplants is to this day, many people still salt their eggplants. And I can remember questioning this, saying, you know, why do you do this? To get the bitterness, the astringency out of it. However, almost every eggplant that one purchases today will not have any, well, very little astringency and or bitterness. But people still
Right.
do that to this day because it's just, you know, what their mother taught them or something like that.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And you know, that genetic modification, there is a difference
Oh, of
between, I
course, yeah,
think we hear like
yeah,
now, you know, they're putting the actual like, you know, pesticide or rodenticide or herbicide like into the plant, which is different than like, you know, selecting for the
correct.
qualities in a plant that you like, right? And I think that's a, you know, something that I didn't understand. You just hear
Mhm.
genetically modified and you're like, oh, it's bad. And it's like, well, we've been doing it for a long
Yeah, a
time,
long
you
time.
know, in a much different way,
Yeah.
in what I would say like a more natural way, like over the years, and you know, looking at seeds and the plants that are more robust and like wanting to, you know, propagate those versus the ones that are weak. You know, it's sometimes it's for taste and sometimes it's for like, you know, the success of the crop, you know, in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think it's so interesting. Apples used to be almost not sweet at
Mhm.
all. Eggplants, you know, in addition to the spines, I didn't see the spines, but they used to be like little and like they almost looked like an orange, some
Yes, yeah,
versions of
yeah.
eggplant. So yeah, we've come a long way in you know, what we know as fruit and versus like I think where it came from.
There is a certain amount of natural selection goes on there as well, because the berries that were the ripest or had that sort of, you know, to be the biggest, ripest berries would be the ones that were eaten by the animals first and therefore dispersed, right? So there is a
Right,
certain amount of evolution going on there. Um,
right.
but it's interesting, when you go to your local market and the like, what do you look for in fruit?
Yeah, so you want to get, if you're, you know, fortunate enough to live in an area that, you know, is in season or has a
Yes, yeah,
growing season, you do want to look, you know, local, because what's in season, what's grown in season is going to be fresher, it's going to taste better, and often it's more affordable
mhm,
because, you know, it's in season, it's growing, and it doesn't have to be shipped, you know, so you're environmentally, you're being, you know, you're making better choices. Organic is another thing that's really important because some of the most sprayed produce items are fruit. Eight of the top 12 dirty dozen, meaning like this is from the environmental working group, and which crops are sprayed and not sprayed. So the dirty dozen are the most sprayed. 8 of the 12 are fruits. So
interesting.
really important, you know, when you're looking at like berries, peaches, pears, apples, grapes, to buy them organic whenever possible, because it's not just one pesticide or one herbicide. I mean, it's like upwards of 50, you know, on like a
Wow.
single strawberry. So you think you're getting all, you know, all the benefits that we talked
Yes,
about,
yes,
you know,
yes,
the
yes.
fiber and the nutrients and stuff. It's like now it's like loaded with toxins.
Now, perhaps you can correct me here, but I had heard that bananas were one of the things that you didn't really need to purchase when they were marked as organic because the skin protects them from said sprays.
Yeah, so they're not on the dirty dozen list. I think they're on the clean 15 list, but if not, they're somewhere in the middle. But that
Okay.
is something to like, you know, if you have to decide, you know, like something like a strawberry, you eat the whole thing. Something like an orange, you peel. A banana, you peel. An
Right. Of course. Yeah,
avocado,
that
you
makes
eat or
sense.
you peel. So it's not to say that there's none that gets in there, but you're taking, you know, a portion of it off and eating, you know, what's maybe a little bit more protected. So that is one way to, you know, to look at it if you have to decide, you know, like what to eat. But like, you know, the list that I was saying, the berries, the pears, this, you know, we eat that whole thing. So
Yes.
you don't usually, you know, peel a grape.
So in closing, I'm going to ask you a question that our son asked me the other day. What are your top
Okay.
3 fruits?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So it depends on the season, but I could eat pineapple and I have until like I can't even feel my tongue
Okay.
anymore. Like, so pineapple, I love grapes and I love berries.
Mm-hmm. I'm on gooseberries, which we don't
Okay.
actually see too many of here.
Yeah.
That's more of a thing from back home because they used to grow in the gardens there. Um, Tomatoes, absolutely love tomatoes. They're one of my favorite
Yeah.
things. And the third one, what was the third one? Oh, oh, a russet apple.
A russet apple.
Yeah,
See, I'm
never
a
had a
honey
russet apple.
person myself. What's the features of a russet apple?
Russet apples are quite small and almost brown. They're
Okay.
not that tasty really to eat fresh because they are much more starchy. They're one of those old heritage heirloom varieties. You see them now and again, and I get very excited about them, forgetting that they come into their own really much like a russet potato once you actually cook them. I think they could be related.
Oh my.
Yeah. Anyway, Jill, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. Thank you for taking some time out of your day once again. I know you must be very busy, and we will speak to you very soon.
Thank you. Bye,
Take care.
Jamie.
Bye for now.